What's going on, Dirty Laundry family? This is Bill Money, your host of Dirty Laundry Media. Back to drop off another video. The video that I just put up, that you just watched, was a documentary based on the Mexican gang violence in California. The specific scene that I showed you was an actual case in which a Mexican gang in Boyle Heights, I believe, or in Florence, that part was in Florence, actually started targeting innocent black families for shootings, beatings, other sorts of terroristic acts against innocent civilians. And what we know now was in an effort to scare these families away from the area. This one here that I'm bringing up to you now is the result of a case that began back in 2014 in Big Hazard or Boyle Heights. Big Hazard gang member says he orchestrated firebombing of black families in Boyle Heights. A gang member who organized a one-night string of racially motivated firebombings in Boyle Heights has pleaded guilty to the attacks on the Eastside black community, prosecutors said. Carlos Hernandez pleaded guilty to 5 felonies, including using fire and carrying explosives to commit a federal felony and conspiracy to violate civil rights, the U.S. Attorney's Office announced on Tuesday. And I just don't believe it was a one-night string, but okay, I just believe that particular incident is the one they got caught for. Hernandez, also known as Ryder, admitted organizing the attacks to scare African American families out of the Ramona Gardens housing development. Hernandez gave each of the other 7 gang members involved in the firebombings specific roles and items to use in the attacks, including masks and a hammer, prosecutors said. The defendant oversaw a scheme designed to send African American residents a potentially deadly message. "You are not welcome here," said U.S. Attorney Nick Hanna in a news release. Hernandez is the final defendant to plead guilty in the case. The 7 others, members of the Big Hazard Latino street gang, were charged and pleaded guilty in 2016 to the firebombings, which were intended to push African Americans out of the housing complex. In May 2014, gang members smashed the windows of 4 apartments, 3 of which were occupied by African American families, and threw lighted Molotov cocktails into the homes. While the others pleaded guilty, Hernandez maintained his innocence and was to face trial for his role in the attacks. According to the court filings, Hernandez said the bombings were ordered by the Mexican Mafia, La M, a prison gang that controls many Latino gangs in Southern California. The Big Hazard gang has a history of violence against the black community. The 2014 attack came at a time when African Americans were beginning to feel comfortable again in the community, 15 years after a similar attack by the street gang that also aimed to push them out. After a series of explosions on August 30th, 1992, the black families who lived in the project left. For the next 2 decades, almost no African Americans lived at Ramona Gardens. The area later entered a time of progress when black families started moving back in and violence began to decrease. But that peace was shattered by the 2014 attacks. Hernandez faces a maximum term of life in prison and is scheduled to be sentenced October 7th. The 7 other gang members will be sentenced later this year, the U.S. Attorney's Office said. So as we can see, and a lot of people are unaware of, that the issue between, this Mexican on Native black violence in California has been going on for generations. According to the documentary that I watched, I believe in the 20s and 30s, a lot of Mexicans began to move into these areas of California to work on the railroads, and ended up settling there. And that's where the friction began. never really, abating, but I guess reaching high points and low points through the course of the generations. This latest attack again occurred in 2014, and 5 years later, we see the resolution of the case. So yeah, I always say, it's two sides to every story. People always want to push that black-brown coalition philosophy or propaganda. And I say, hey, wait a minute, let's look at what's really going on, because one point I did want to make that if we do have Latinos or Mexicans or whoever who are supposedly an ally with us, and they sit back and they say nothing about these types of things that go on, then I can't really consider them an ally if they sit back and mute themselves when it comes to issues of Mexican gangs committing what amounts to genocide on innocent black people. And, many of these guys being gang members, many of them may be here illegally. So many issues attached to that. So if you're not on the ground in California, I would suggest, if you're interested in the immigration issue and how it negatively affects or impacts the black community, read about situations and conditions in places where immigration is really a factor. If you're in New York City, it may affect you differently. You're not a border town. If you're in Ohio, it may affect you differently. Here in Georgia, it may affect us a little differently. We're not directly on the border, but states that are directly on the border, like Texas, New Mexico, California, they definitely feel the impact of immigration at a much sharper, much harsher level. So always keep those things in mind. And I'll keep you guys posted. Again, I always question that black-brown coalition, and I point to examples like this. So yeah, get down in the comment section. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Dirty Laundry Media. This is your host, Bill Money, signing off, and I'll be back with another video.